I'm going to take another quote. The last time I went through a message that was something that I'd pulled out of one of a book from Bruce Lee. And of course, Qigong Li is the prime inspiration for the art that we teach, and observed or had quite a number of observations on Taoist, Buddhist, and Confucian philosophy. So what I've done is taken a quote from the Tao Ji Kundo, which I found particularly poignant, and wanted to discuss that a little bit, as I did last time. And I'll just read it. It's up on the screen for you now. The perfect way is only difficult for those who pick and choose. Do not like, do not dislike. All will then be clear. Make a hair-breadth difference, and heaven and earth are set apart. If you want the truth to stand clear before you, never be for or against. The struggle between for and against is the mind's worst disease. Now, this seems like a somewhat obtuse quote when read at the initial first glance, I think, and perhaps not for those of us who study Eastern philosophy and are acquainted with this method of thought. But I do think that a lot of times when people are very first developing an orientation to a different perspective, a different way of thought, it tends to be a little bit confusing. This simple quote, this statement, is filled with a great deal of meaning. And I think a lot of times, as I've, over the years, seen students encounter this, the subject matter, it's interpreted as basically being on the fence. Well, the perfect way is to not pick. Well, what do you mean by that? Okay, so I'm ambivalent. I stay in the middle. I don't choose a clear path one way or another. And so that gets into the argument that Derek has discussed many times, which is, well, if there's neither good nor bad, then I just flow with whatever feels right, and that's my right choice, which tends to be, in my opinion, more of an irresponsible choice than one that actually flows with the energy of the situation or moves toward potential positive growth. The overall meaning alludes to the principle of duality. So when we talk about the principle of duality and oneness, unity, this is an examination of desire, of our desires that are so deeply entrenched in our psyche that rather than just allowing ourselves to be and to flow with life choices as they present themselves, which may be the best for our spiritual development, we instead make choices and judgments based on material desire. So rather than looking at a situation or a circumstance or anything that we observe, we have an emotional attachment, an outcome, a judgment to whatever it is that we encounter at that given moment. And I would suggest, as I've done with myself many times, and I do this every day, is to try to look at anything that you observe in the world without any judgment. I find that, speaking for myself, nearly everything that I encounter, visual, auditory, philosophical, is immediately met with my mind's desire to attach a positive or a negative to it. So rather than just simply observe what is, being, I immediately move into a mode of judgment. Immediately something is right or wrong, good or bad, positive, negative, I assign it that. So this original core essence of oneness, which is just being an observation, is immediately displaced. And then this emotional attachment creates the meaning, and the meaning creates the decision and the motivation for the action, whatever that may be. And that begins to spin the wheel of karma. So back to that original motivation, that original observation, if that can be held intact without judgment, without that element of desire, of grasping that's attached to it, which is one of the things that I referred to in the last talk, then perhaps we'll be able to make a choice that is actually a flow-based choice, following the Tao. That's what I attempt to do for myself. Boy, let me tell you, it's not easy. I have an outcome associated, but I'm getting better at it. One of the ways in which I'm able to do that is with people who work with me. We're hiring employees right now, hiring teachers. And there was one in particular that I really wanted because of her expertise in a particular area. But the energy isn't quite right. It's just not quite a fit because of a variety of reasons. So my rational mind will tell me, well, I still need to have this because that's going to translate into getting what I want. That's going to create a sense of reputation, for our facility, that it'll be great because of X, Y, and Z, but the energy's just not quite right. So rather than trying to manipulate that, which I've done on many occasions, and when I have done that, it inevitably turns out poorly. This time, Joanne and I both said, let's just let this pass. Something else will present itself. Someone else will present themselves. And I think that's probably what I'm alluding to with this. And again, this is on a very tactile, pragmatic level, something that affects my life choices. But on more of an esoteric, or from more of an esoteric position, when I can really be a part of the Tao and not have this emotional affectation that drives me toward a desired outcome, well, it certainly affects me in a much more positive manner, and it allows me to be more peaceful because my choices align with the natural order, and then everything turns out as it should. I've seen this time and time again, but boy, it's still hard to let go of that. So this is one of the principles that Buddhists refer to as the choosing between relative and absolute reality. So the relative being the observable, our tactile, tangible existence, and the absolute being that other realm that we're all a part of, that's all encompassing, that whole 99% of the rest of everything else that's not the 1% that we're so fixated on. So if we follow this logic, then this is presented to us in the realm of symbols. This is the symbol we chose to represent our learning, our journey at this facility. And more importantly, not so much even this facility, is just our approach to life. Now, Bruce Lee had created a similar logo, and people often mistake this one for the original Jeet Kune Do logo. It's yin-yang. We adapted the color scheme, but again, light and dark. But in this actually is a logo which emanates from another source. This is a photo that Derek gave me back in 2005 when the group, and Bill went with them, was there on this trip, visited Taiwan. And this is the dome of the Yushuan, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, temple. This made a particular impression on me. I had this on my screensaver and on my desktop for quite some time. So you'll note the symbol of Lao Mu in the center, the personified representation of oneness, of unity, is the dots with the line in the center. And then emanating outward is the division, the duality, yin yang. Well, we just took that symbol and just changed the color scheme and made that fit with the original Jeet Kune Do logo. Then emanating outward from that center mat, that center core, if you'll see on the edges are all of these portraits. And these are from the world religious traditions. And so emanating from the central core, the central universal truth, emanates all of these expressions of that truth. So when we go back to this quote, it's really talking about the principle of oneness, of unity. It all emanates out from that. So it's not an irresponsible choice of staying on the fence, but it's recognizing that this all comes from the Tao, all comes from the middle path, from that integration of everything. And it's all ultimately complementary. So I think what Sigang Li is saying is that once we accept and embrace the totality of existence, then the truth will become clear. We take action based on our intuition as we learn to embrace the energy and the nature of the universe. So I hope you enjoyed the little talk. Thanks very much for listening to my spiel today, and I hope everybody has a great day.